Fáilte Macarja. I'm Laura O'Brien. Welcome back to episode 22. Today we're diving into one of the most electrifying aspects of the Morrigan's power: prophecy, battle fury, and the sacred speech that binds them together. Now, if you've been following along on previous podcasts, you'll remember that we've touched on the Morrigan's prophetic role before. It's very important, so we will probably do it again. But there's a crucial distinction that we need to explore: the difference between gentle divination and the raw, transformative power of prophetic rosc poetry. So, what does real battle fury actually look like in the manuscripts? And how does sacred speech function as a bridge between the worlds? So that's exactly where we're heading today. First up, rosc poetry, the voice that changes reality. So let's talk about rosc poetry, one of the most powerful and misunderstood forms of Irish sacred speech. Now, just in case you're not catching what I'm saying, it's rosc, R-O-S-C. If you've never encountered the term before, rosc is a special form of rhythmic, incantatory Old Irish verse that appears in the manuscripts whenever reality needs to shift. You will find this most prolifically actually in Cathmachira, the Second Battle of Moytura. And for this, I do recommend Morgan Daimler's translation, because unfortunately, when the old school academics, usually of the Protestant ascendancy, were translating these texts before, looking at you, Elizabeth Gray, they basically viewed this poetry as doggerel, as barbaric savagery, and, all the rest of it. So in Morgan Daimler's translation, you can actually see the rosc poetry in full. In other translations, you might come across just this very frustrating ... So where the Morrigan appears at moments in the Cathmachira that literally turn the tide of history, she's not just predicting events, she's using the power of rosc to cause them, binding fate with her words. In my book, The Morrigan, Ireland's Goddess, I do walk you through some of these passages, because when you see how rosc functions, you understand something profound. The Morrigan didn't just do prophecy. She wielded sacred speech as a technology for transformation. This isn't fortune telling, it's reality shaping poetry that bridges the other world and this world, channeling this divine power into physical form. And this wasn't just the Morrigan, this was something that was accessible to the Dree, or druids, or magic users, or sorcerers, sorceresses of old. So, prophecy and divination. What's the difference, right? Here's where a lot of people kind of get confused, because they mix up prophecy and divination as if they're the same thing. And it's understandable to maybe, use them interchangeably in some specific contexts, but they are actually quite different and distinct, especially in the Irish tradition. So first up, divination is structured. We are asking specific questions, using tools like ogham sticks, or interpreting omens from nature, so nature augury, say bird augury, receiving answers through established methods. Now again, in the book on magic and divination, in the whole chapter on magic and divination, I do look at some of the traditional forms of divination in case you want to try them yourself. But these are these established methods and tools. So it's accessible, it's controlled, it's communication, it's how we participate in two-way communication in our right relationship with the Morrigan and with the divine in general. Prophecy, on the other hand, is inspired, unbidden often. Now, you can do rituals to bring about prophetic situations, which is, the next phase of it maybe, but it often arrives unbidden. It's intensely physical. It's felt in the body. It causes a physical impact on the people who are hearing it. So think like trance states, poetic frenzy, ecstatic speech, and this is like maybe where the goddess speaks through the prophet. And in the manuscripts, these experiences are described as, or would seem to be, even if they're not being described as in by a third party, but they would seem to be terrifying, uncontrollable, electric. Even in ritual situations, where somebody has, for example, there's a ritual called Antarav Fesh, so the bull feast, and this would be to instigate a form of prophecy with regard to sovereignty and all that. It's quite complicated, but there is still this like electric, uncontrollable speech, and this is where a lot of like a gesh might come through prophecy. So a druid may see a child born or be presented with a baby, and the prophecy then would come through them from the other world that these are prohibitions or taboos that are going to be relevant for their life. That's what gyasa are. They're not just, promises you make to gods. So all of this is really important. And the Morrigan, as we see, especially in Cáthmac. Now, there are other examples in other mythologies, such as Tombo Regavna, such as the Tombo Cúlne, where there are other examples of rosc poetry. But I would say the Second Battle of Moitura is probably the richest source for rosc poetry itself. And within this tale, she is primarily a prophet. Her speech burns, it transforms the world, it drives armies to victory or defeat, it instigates, it incites, but she also appears in kind of divinatory context through the mythology as well. She's reading omens, she's weaving fate, she is causing the things that she can predict, she is literally making sure that they happen as well. And in my own relationship with the Morrigan, what I found is she's always pushing you to meet the truth, not just receive it gently. It's an active process, and this is where our own divination comes into it as well. So I do want to talk as well, because I think it's particularly relevant for our modern world, for the activism and social justice, for the change and transformation that is so needed in the world today. It's important to talk about battle incitement and the power of sacred rage. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Morrigan's role is battle incitement, her ability to rouse battle fury, to stir courage, to unleash panic among enemies. And you'll see this with the Morrigan and her sisters. This incitement, sometimes it's through screaming, sometimes it's through calling out. It's called rosc, where there's like, you're absolutely shit. She does it better, obviously, but like, you're absolutely shit. Nobody would ever want to go anywhere near you. You're such a bad warrior. Get out there and prove yourself, right? The manuscripts are full of moments where her poetry, her shouts, her sacred speeches, her screams literally turn the tide of battle, or certainly have a huge impact on the battle. She does fight hand to hand herself in a couple of places, but her real power lies in what she calls forth with her voice. This is her magic, and this is her power, is the transformation of sound. She stands at fords, she prophesies victory and chaos. Her words reshape the battlefield itself, the outcome. At the end of battles, she will stand and she will give two options, two prophetic options. So all of this is there in the stories. But what does that mean for us today? I would say incitement isn't just about ancient warfare, right? These are allegories for what's happening in the world today as well. This can be about the energy that you bring with your words, with your creativity, with your community, with your sacred rage. The changes that you can cause when you get so furious that, you have this righteous fury flowing through you at the injustices, at the 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 Gau Flaha, the sovereign's lies, which is the opposite of the fear Flaha. We talked about this in the previous episode on sovereignty, so definitely go back to listen to that. But the injustice of this wrongful leadership that is running the world right now, this is very much part of what the Morrigan is concerned with. And, what we, I won't say should, but definitely could. Let's put it in could. What we could be concerned with. I would go so far as to say should, but, don't want to be that person. I just was, I guess. Anyway, whatever. What you say and how you say it changes the world. Words matter. Sounds matter. How we use our voice, and our voice can be anything from our physical speech in a private, in a one-to-one, through our platforms, at demonstrations. It can be how we address the people who are in power. It can be our magic. It can be all of these things, using our voice to change the world, to bring transformation. So the question is, are you using that power consciously? We all have this power. Are you using it consciously? So bringing sacred speech into our modern practice, like how do we integrate the manuscript teachings into our own spiritual practice? Here are some practical approaches for this. First, engage with the actual rosc poetry. In my book, I include some passages because when you read them, even in translation, you start to feel how different this is from ordinary speech. You can pick up the rhythm, the cadence, the format of it. And I would like you to let yourself experience this rhythm, the power, the way these words are meant to create change in translation from the original stories. So definitely my book, Morgan Daimler's translation of Cathma Chira, the Second Battle of Moitura, highly recommend. Secondly, develop your own prophetic practice. So not everyone will enter full trance states, but this is why, say, when we're doing the Morrigan Intensive, this is one of the reasons why we build these muscles to enhance our focus, our visualization, all of these things. And we do it in a very neurodivergent friendly way, just for the record. This is a lot of pushback I get. Well, I can't do that because I'm neurospicy. Well, guess what? You still can. There are ways and means, right? Yes, you. Yes, you. You can meditate. You can visualize. You can focus. It takes some work. Like everything, like going to the gym and building muscles, it takes some work and some practice. That sounds very patronizing. Sorry, I didn't mean that. But I get so much pushback on this, like, I can't do this. The world currently is designed against focus, against concentration, against visualization. And I'm on a bit of a mission to push back against that, because humans need to be able to do this. We absolutely can't be distracted. That's what's gotten us into this mess, really. So, not everyone will enter full trance states, and it is a process. You can build up to it. And something like a guided journey then can get you into a full state. We do talk about this in the book. In the ritual section of the book, there are ways and means of doing all this as well. So what you can do is cultivate moments of inspired speaking, is to show up and to be in a state of mind, to be in a frame of mind, to be in an open, receptive manner, that if the Morrigan had something to say to you or through you, that would be able to happen, because in our day-to-day lives, in our day-to-day practice, most of us, again, don't allow that space and that openness for inspired speaking. Now, it could also happen through poetry, through journaling, through vocal ritual work. Like, there are ways that you can kind of trigger this as well. And your speech then can become a bridge to deeper wisdom. It doesn't have to be speech to anybody else. This can be a very personal practice, and probably should be, honestly, when you're starting out. This idea that everybody's a prophet of the Morrigan is very egocentric. And, you know, personally, I have been contacted by people over the years who have told me that they have, you know, a message from the Morrigan that they have received that I absolutely need to hear. And again, when you start with this personal practice, rather than feeling like you have to be some grand prophet, right? What happens is you understand that maybe those messages are for you, sir, madam, non-binary person. And also then, you know, understand that maybe other people have their personal processes and their personal relationships. And if the Morrigan wanted to talk to them, then she is absolutely capable of doing it directly, right? So for yourself, your speech, your prophetic speech, can become a bridge to deeper wisdom. And then third, separate your prophetic moments from your divination practice. Now, don't be too worried about this one. This is refining a skill set. So if you're just starting out, or if you're kind of resetting your practice to be Morrigan specific or Irish specific, then this can blend a lot, right? But just bring awareness to it. Notice which one that you're working with and honor both. But understand that prophetic flashes kind of require a different handling when we're in the process of them. And certainly if we believe that they're intended for other people, or if we're in company with other people, they really require different handling than structured divination sessions. And even this applies to just ourselves as well. And finally, I would recommend that you be mindful of your own incitements. Like, what words are you sending out into the world? And that can be how you speak to your family, or it can be comments that you leave on social media, or it can be, you know, like, again, prompting your local politicians and demanding from your local politicians that they take action, right? Be mindful of all of this. Are you stirring courage or panic? What are you sharing on your social media platforms? That's, you know, there is a certain amount of incitement that can and should be done. A lot of people are sleepwalking through a lot of this stuff that's happening. But there has to be a balance between courage and fear, you know. So just be mindful of that. We want to be always aiming for building community and sowing confusion. So if you are sharing warnings, try and provide solutions as part of that. You know, if somebody is following your stuff, or you're in a friendship with somebody, or within your own family, or you're in a mentor position, or whatever format that looks like, make sure that there is that balance between building and solutions rather than just chaos, fear, and panic, right? There's a place for that. There is definitely a place for that. Again, lessons from the mythology. 100 men dying of fright on a battlefield, right? But if you're not on a battlefield, if you're just in the day-to-day, then just be aware and use your power responsibly, right? So if this podcast has sparked something in you, if you want to go beyond listening to actually practicing and belonging, the Morrigan Academy community may be your next step. I will put a link to that below. we're not interested in kind of surface level engagement as such. We want people that are ready to dive in, to at least commit. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be experienced. I'm not saying that, but we want people who are ready to do the work. And that's the community that I'm building, right? There is within the Morrigan Academy community, now there is a free Facebook group as well. The Morrigan's Cave is on Facebook. Feel free to dive in there as well. There is a small point of entry, like $20 or something, one-off fee, just to keep things running smoothly in the Morrigan Academy community, to make sure that there is that slight barrier to entry so that people are on the same page as we come in. Grand. If you want to be in the community and you can't afford $20, please email me and I will absolutely waive that fee. But what I'm really looking for is people who ask real questions and, step beyond social media spirituality into grounded, transformative practice, into real relationships. So you're going to find that these communities welcome people who are seeking authentic connection with Irish tradition, not quick fixes or easy answers, right? So, Gurmagat, friends, may your words carry power, may your prophecy bring necessary change, and may your speech always serve the highest truth. And, one way of using your voice would be to buy my book and leave a review, because that really, really helps. Really helps. If you get value out of my work, please consider buying my book, leaving a review, recommending it to a friend, sharing it on your social media platform. I would really appreciate that. And I believe it contributes to the highest truth, to the work that the Morrigan wants us to be doing, which is to upskill, to learn, to build community, to make sure that we are living our best lives, we are the strongest we can be. All of that is included in this book, as well as authentic grounding in genuine native spirituality. So if any of that appeals to you, please buy my book, leave me a review as early as possible, because they really matter. Okay, so slán go fóill, until we meet again, keep your voice sacred and your connection to the Morrigan strong. Slán.